See, when you want to be a little bitch baby, such as myself, there's gotta be a couple things. First of all, you can't be super dramatic but then have zero depth to your personality. That shit just don't ring with people. I mean, you can totally do that. A lot of people do that. I used to do that. And to an extent, I still do that, depending on a perspective. But it's a lot more interesting if your little bitch babiness has some depth to it, an explanation. Like if somebody wants to go digging into your tragic backstory, so to say, or into your sad, pathetic behavior, they better find something cool. Or some good, something juicy. Not just like, when I was 7, somebody stepped on my foot. You better get fucking shot in the leg. You better have something. Okay, that's first of all. But then second of all, don't use that thing as an excuse. Nobody about that shit. Nobody about fucking, that's mainstream shit, Oh no, I'm so sad. Here's all my mental disorders, and here's all the tragic, terrible things that happened to me. Nobody about that shit. Nobody fucking cares. You can be as sad and pathetic and have all the shit going on as you want. Nobody gives a shit. And if they pretend to, it's just because you're making it hard to communicate otherwise. But believe me, it's no good. It's no good. Don't do this. Anyway, part 3. Be lighthearted when the situation calls for it. You can have fun with all the drama in the world. You can sit in your room and cry about the demon that lives on your wall and about your personal transmutation, your personal experience with the deepest abyss and all the depth mumbo jumbo, and how it feels to die and all this sort of stuff. But then also remember that from the outside, you look like a sad, pathetic blob sitting in the middle of a room just kind of crying into yourself. And there's some comedy to that, so laugh with the people who want to laugh at you for that, because you'll find that it actually helps you boost your morale, and also it makes you a lot more tolerable. Plus, and here's the real upside, if you manage to be pathetic, but also not be completely just a mess and self-deprecating, but also arrogant and just a huge dickhead and just drowning in a hole of self-pity and poor me and oh god and all this shit and then to constantly go on about it. No, if you manage to do it, but to still have normal and upbeat conversation when it does come up, but then if people ask you about all your personal misery, you can share it. If they ask you, that's permission. Then you can fucking reach out, and if they're like, well, you seem too happy to have all this personal misery going on, you can be like, oh yeah, I mean, you just gotta be able to balance it. I just enjoy the drama of it. And sometimes it makes you suicidal. And you sit in your room and you're like, man, I wish I'd friggin' die. But then the second people come in and they're like, are you good? You're like, yeah, I am good. And then you are good. That's the thing. You gotta differentiate between when the demon eats your mind versus when it doesn't. It's pretty good. Because the second you can do that, you can not kill yourself. I mean, you still could, but probably you'll realize, why would I? It's just the same shit backwards. So, anyway, this is all pretty good. Do that. Don't try to make conversations about yourself unless people ask you. You can poke a little if you're having an off day and you really need the attention. Sometimes people forgive that. Sometimes people really like to help. Look at people's personalities. Some people really could not give less of a shit based on their personality, and they think each bit of your metaphysical whining just means that you don't have any bigger issues going on, which probably is a very valid argument to make, so don't hate them for it. They just have different priorities, and probably their priorities have their own ups and downs. But if you find somebody who has a similar level of melancholy, sadness that they want to share, sometimes it's nice to just sit in filth with them and cry for like 40 minutes. It's a nice experience. Don't overdo it though. You will die. So yeah, bit of that. Make it into something beautiful. That's pretty good. Have something to show for your time, even if it's not something amazing, even if you hate it. Don't say you hate it. People hate that. something it's like, man, it's so hard to balance being arrogant and self-deprecating to a level where because nowadays you can't just be dramatic for drama's sake without being called cringy, edgy, or just this little, the piece of shit. And to a point, that's fair. We all gotta grow up at some point. And that's part of this whole laugh about yourself type deal. But then for the people who don't know that you can laugh about yourself, every now and then you gotta also mention that, yeah, I know I look pathetic from an outside perspective, and that's very valid. It's a very valid perspective. But also, you do you, I'll do me. it's working generally. To show you're capable of change, that you're not stuck, that you're not like not a complete mess on the brink of death, no matter how much you are. Just so people don't lose faith in you, because if they do, they'll just get on your nerves all the time and tell you to fix your life and all that mumbo jumbo. I'm not saying have a facade, because you'll just die quicker if you have one. That's just like, on the inside you're dying, on the outside you're pretending. That's a shit strategy. You'll always have to, not pretend to some point, but you'll have to, laugh about yourself. Fit the scene. Realize that you can let go of all this sad shit going on to as enough of an extent that you can sit at the dinner table and just kind of go along with whatever's going on at the dinner table without thinking you have to tell people about how shit your life is going. Because carrying that mindset around with you, that'll just make everybody uncomfortable, including yourself. You'll try and you think you're achieving something. You're not. You're just being sad and making other people sad. It's not good unless they ask you. Then maybe also at the dinner table, hold back a bit. Don't use any excuse they give you to go on a huge rant. Unless it's your YouTube channel. There you can do whatever the fuck you want on your YouTube channel. Yeah, that's my advice. Stay hydrated.